motion to,
Yep. John Melcher, April 14th, I move to open the Board of Health meeting.
I second that. All those in favor?
Aye.
And I'm Charlie Costello, John Melcher, Frank. And so tonight we have not too busy an agenda, but first up is a public hearing on a property at 202 Main Street, which is the St. Mary's Church, for a variance request. Now, this variance is a request from the state or from our local bylaw?
Actually, there's a bunch. We've got a variance request.
Let me introduce you first.
Yep.
Or you introduce yourself to the
Sure. Good evening. For the record, my name's John
members over
Moran.
there.
I work for the Moran Cameron Group. We're here tonight representing the Roman Catholic Archbishop of Boston's for their property located at 202 Main Street for the replacement of an existing failed septic system. Now, what we're here for tonight is a variance under the state code Title V, a local upgrade approval under the state code, and 2 variance requests under your local Board of Health regulations. So what you see before you is the actual property. The outside perimeter is highlighted in purple. Green is the existing wetlands that exist out on the property. And red are the 2 existing buildings that are out. There's actually 3 structures out on the property. You've got the existing church, the parish house, and then a detached garage out on the backside.
And that dark dash line is the parking lot?
This is the parking lot, exactly.
Okay.
So the church had called us up. They were having issues with their septic system. The existing field, it appears, there's 2 lines coming out of the back of the building underneath the basement. Well, they have a finished lower level. So under that floor, they've got 2 lines coming out. It appears it's going to 2 separate septic tanks. And it's our guess that it's combining up to 1 leach field that's located out under that back parking lot. Obviously, water table's an issue out there. Again, what you see in green is the wetlands. The wetlands pretty much creep right up to the back of the lot. They pretty much, as you can see, surround the entire property. Ox Pasture Brook is actually located to the rear of this as well. We are located greater than 200 feet from the brook, so we're not within the riverfront area for any part. But we are within the 100-foot buffer from the wetlands, so we have filed with conservation. We actually dropped off a notice of intent application tonight for the work, for the replacement. So what we went and did is we started looking at, all right, obviously we're not going to be putting the septic in the backyard. Setting the septic way off to the back side of the property eliminates any potential area for a repair for that building if we ever need it. So we started looking at what can we do right around the church facility itself. And what we chose is we did some soil testing out in the front to try to put a leach field out at the front of the property, contain it all within the church structure, try to minimize the cost as much as possible. Obviously, because of the elevation change, it was going to be a pump system. But really, putting it out into the back, it would be an elevated system. They'd lose the use of the parking lot, so that really wasn't an option. So we sat down, engineered a plan where we come out, tie the existing septic lines, straight shot from one line out to the tank, put a couple cleanouts in, get the other line in, based on the design flow.
And what do you have to design it for in a church like that?
It's a church with a kitchen facility.
Recreational,
Yeah, the state code back in, I think, '06, Title V actually changed. I believe that's when it came into effect. They actually added that kitchen component. Before that, they just had church. And then you had to figure out, well, what's going on in that lower level? And what the state had done finally, they said, all right, if you've got a church, it's based on this flow at so many seats. If you've got kitchen within the church, you bump it up and you base it on so many seats. You just use, I think it's 6 gallons. They bumped it up to 6 gallons a seat if you've got a kitchen. So, yeah, so we've got 350 seats. So the septic's designed for 2,100 gallons a day. Based on the water meter readings, they started having septic issues around 2012, near the end of 2012. So in the year 2013, they pretty much stopped using the bottom of the facility. So I got the water meter readings for 2012, and they were having regular attendance. They were using the bottom facility. The highest flow was, I believe, the month of October, and it was around 500 gallons for the month.
Wow.
So I spoke to Ed, and I said, look, what we're going to do, I explained what's going on. I said, what we're going to do is we're going to put in a time dose system. We're going to try to, store the flow and try to just pump it over the first few days of the week, so that at least the system won't be getting nothing for the whole week.
Because it'll starve.
Exactly. And we still think that we may have an issue because we just don't have, we have to design on 2,100 gallons a day, and they just don't have that type of flow. And the DEP is never going to give you a flow variance if you've got flow that's in the table. So you'll never get a variance from them, even though based on the water meter readings, we can see that we're not anywhere near that.
So is that 2,100 gallons a day, 7 days a week?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's absurd.
Well, we've got a 4,500 gallon septic tank because of it. 3,500 gallon pump
You mean the
chamber.
new one you're putting
The
in?
new one's coming in.
And it'll all be tight, and it'll just,
Yep.
things will sit in that.
Yep. And then we're firing off to an 1.25 force main, up to a distribution box and then to a presby. Based on the limited amount of space that we have out there, that's why we chose the presby. It's technically considered an alternative technology. As I stated, we do have several variances and local upgrades, and I'll run through those and why we're actually requesting them. First one is, under Title V, you're supposed to design at a minimum, your inverts of your tanks have to be 1 inch above the estimated seasonal high water table. Based on the existing plumbing, that's not possible. The plumbing is about 2.5 feet down, and without having to rip up the entire floor, we're proposing to leave the tanks where they are. They're not monolithic tanks because they're so big. You can't get monolithic tanks that size. But we've proposed several additional work on the tanks that you usually don't do on a conventional system to ensure that they're watertight. First thing being the knockouts on the side of the tank. We want them cored out at the factory. We're not going to have the installer do it on the site. Usually they just knock them out at the site. Core them at the site, that way they're a perfect circle, give you very little room for error.
Leakage.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Watertight flexible boots, and gaskets will be used at the inlets and outlets, and we're also requiring that the tanks, after they're installed, they have to be pressure tested on site. It used to be it was real difficult to try to pressure test these tanks when they were 2-piece tanks because they have that horizontal seam, but they can do it now. So once the tanks are in, if they use Shea tanks, which is what's spec'd, Shea will come in and pressurize and vacuum test the tanks after they're installed. Obviously, buoyancy, we've got buoyancy calcs on the plan. Buoyancy isn't an issue. Obviously, the existing tanks haven't popped up out of the parking lot. But if you went out there, the parking lot looks like the ocean. You can tell that obviously there's a water table issue out there. And again, the wetlands wrap right up to the back of the parking lot. So it is wet. And again, other than changing the whole interior plumbing in the building, there's really nothing else we can do. And that's why we're proposing all these additional construction requirements for the tanks themselves. Under the local upgrade approval under Title V, because of the water tables that we have out front, we're requesting to reduce the required setback of 4 feet to 3 feet.
From the front street?
Well, the setback from the leaching facility.
Oh,
So from the
okay.
bottom of the leaching facility, from the estimated seasonal high water
Oh, all right.
table
Okay.
to the bottom of the leaching facility, we're requesting to reduce the 4-foot requirement to 3 feet. And again, we're proposing the presby as mitigation for that. Under the remedial use approval, we could actually request a 2-foot reduction allowed by DEP. But we're not requesting that. We don't need that. We do need to change the grade a little bit. We're going to have to raise the grade up a little to meet that requirement because of the fact that a corner of this presby, as you can see right now, the church has a horseshoe type driveway. They'd like to maintain that. Even with the 3-foot separation, I can maintain it. We just have to add about almost a foot of fill on one corner. By regrading the approach coming in, we can still maintain a manageable grade coming in. I don't need the 2-foot reduction in the water table. We can go for the 1 foot, and we can get that to fit and still maintain using the existing turnaround. There is an existing walk that runs from the existing sidewalk up to the front paved area. We will need a few steps to account for that, but we're only looking at like 2 or 3 steps.
Mhm.
So we can get the system in with a 1 foot reduction. And that way now we just fall under the local upgrade approval that's allowed for remedial use. So that's the local upgrade being requested under the state code. And under your local code, as you know, section 2.1A requires a 30-foot setback from a property line to a leaching facility. The state sanitary code's 10 feet. In order to minimize the setback from the wetlands, we went for that 10-foot setback, so we comply to the state code.
So you're outside of 100 feet to the wetlands?
Nope, that's the next one.
All right, okay, sorry.
So we're requesting the reduction for 10 feet to the property line. Again, it's to the front lot line. There's nothing out there, so we don't have to worry about being a minimum setback from a potential septic on the other side of the lot line. It's just the street. And breakout elevation is fine, coming out towards the street, so we don't have to worry about that. But also, under your local code, under 2.1B, you require a 100-foot setback for a septic system from a wetland. And as you can see, based on where the wetlands are, we maintain a 100-foot setback from this wetland, but the finger projection that comes up, we can't meet the 100-foot when we're proposing 72 feet. Originally, I spoke to Ed about the potential of, if the board would rather prefer a 2-foot separation to the water table, I could actually slide the septic over and almost meet the 100-foot setback. But you'd be 2 feet to the water table instead of 3.
Mm-hmm.
And based on our discussions that Ed and I were having back, we came to the conclusion that we felt that a reduction in the 100-foot to 72 feet would be better than a 2-foot setback to the water table than
Less
3.
of a problem, potential
Exactly.
problem, yeah.
And the 72 feet still far exceeds the 50-foot minimum of the state code.
Yeah.
So that's why we designed it that way. There is a culvert coming across here. That's kind of what pulled this, we think is pulling this wetland up that. This is a big field over here, and it looks like when it was graded, it just kind of created this channel that ran right down the side of the 2 properties. Again, we had a loamy sand, pretty good soils, 6 minutes an inch. Out across the front of this area. We're going to try to, because of the fact that we have to pump it, Presby has that differential venting where they have the regular 3-foot vent and then the 10-foot high vent. We are fortunately enough to have a tree out in the front that we're going to try to tuck it behind. So at least from the street, you're not going to see these 2 vent pipes just sticking out of the ground.
And no odors?
Nope. Presby doesn't like, obviously, once the system gets started up, you may get an odor at the beginning of that. Usually it takes a while once the system finally gets up and functioning, then that odor will get away. Presby doesn't like charcoal filters on the vents because it does prevent, they think it masks the amount of air that can get into the system. So,
Because that is a public school across the street.
yes.
So certain periods of the morning and afternoon, there's a lot of people walking,
Right.
and that could be a complaint.
Yep. But based on the flow, the point of the vents, you shouldn't get any odor out towards the street. And again, we're looking at probably about a 30-foot setback, 40-foot setback off the street from where the vents are located. One thing we do need to do is, of course, the water line comes right through the middle of the property. So we will be grabbing that water line, looping it around the leaching facility to maintain the 10-foot setback from the water service to the actual leach field itself.
If you cut that water line, you wouldn't need a septic.
True. Exactly. We did put some extra notes on the plan. I talked to Ed about it before I came up with them, but as I had mentioned to you, based on the flow that's out there, we put some extra notes on the plan that once the system's up and running, we need to come back out and re-inspect it after like a month or 2 months just to see how it's doing. We probably won't even have the tanks filled up after a month or 2 months.
Right.
But we're gonna have to keep an eye on this field. We are putting in a little more complex panel than we usually put in. Usually it's just a float system. It's not a time dose system, but again, as I had mentioned earlier, because of the limited amount of flows, we have created a time dose system on this design. Not only that, this panel will track how many times the pump is fired.
When you say panel, kind of like the control panel.
Exactly, the control panel it'll be set somewhere downstairs in the facility. The control panel will also count how many times the pump's going off, and it will also have a run timer. So we'll be able to at least get an idea of, well, how many times is this thing tripping? That'll do two things for us. It'll give us an idea of, well, what are they really generating for flow? And if a few years down the road, if all of a sudden we start seeing that this thing's going off a lot, then we can start figuring out, well, are we starting to get infiltration from water table? So we can keep an eye on it that way.
But you've done everything you can for the tight tanks.
Exactly. Yeah, I don't think there's really, other than enclosing the tanks themselves,
Right.
which I think is a little overkill. The existing tanks that are out there, the existing field that's out there is probably underwater half the time, and that's why it's limped along,
Right.
and they've just done fine because they didn't have a lot of flow.
Right.
And it's just finally, met its match, and it just gave in.
Yep.
But I think what we're proposing for the tanks at this point is pretty much the most we can do, other than just enclosing them like a standard holding tank
Right.
and then alarming it. But I think that's a little overkill. It's going to be an expensive system as it is,
Right.
but I don't think it's warranted to install that type of safety measure on the tanks themselves. The Presby itself, we're looking at 12 lines, 90 feet long each. So again, it's a big system.
Big system.
It will be loaded. It won't be your conventional, I don't know if you've seen them, how Presby, they connect the pipes and they run in series. Because of the fact that we have to pump to it, you're only allowed to load each line so much. So in order to get around that, we had to literally load each line individually with a line coming out of the D-box. So we've got a 13 outlet D-box, I think. Yeah.
Wow.
For that system. Which, the one nice thing about it, it'll actually knock the flow down. The way we design all our pump systems is, not only do you have your inlet tee in your D-box to slow the velocities down coming down, but outside the tank we also increase the line from whatever force main we have. In this case, it's 1.5 inches. We bump it up to a 4-inch. So what it does is it knocks the velocities down outside the tank as well. Where we looked at the option of actually bringing the water line around this way because we wouldn't have to cross the force main. It's just a much longer run. It would be a much more expensive task. So as required in the code, that's pressure pipe for both lines, and we're actually sleeving the force main 10 feet before and after the water line crossing. Other than that,
So you're requesting overall 3 variances?
3 variances and 1 local upgrade.
1 local upgrade?
Correct.
Yep. Well, what do you think?
Makes sense to me. I'm not an engineer, but it makes sense.
Yeah, I think you've done I think it's an innovative solution to a potential problem, and minimal variances needed on our part.
With the low flow, I mean, it looks like
Yeah.
it's
And
it's overkill anyway with the low flow.
Right.
It's unfortunate the bureaucracy
Yes.
creates such waste.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, it's no different than, a lot of the other towns, they used to always design on, bigger is better. They had design flows of 200 gallons per bedroom on a conventional residential septic. The septic will never fail, but it's never going to work right either because it's not getting the
Yep.
food source it
Nourishment.
needs to function. So unfortunately, like you said, DEP, and I tried it again. I mean, I've had the discussion with them in the past, But when we started this design, I had the same discussion to see maybe the mindset had changed a little bit. But it's still, if you've got a flow rate in the table, you gotta use it. Even if we said, well, we want to design on 200% of the water meter readings, which they allow you to do, but they only allow you to do that if there's no flow in the table for the use that you've got. So you got to design it on whatever you got, and filing a variance is you just kind of wasting your time.
To them.
Yeah,
Right.
What are we, 150 gallons?
Yeah, for your
Yeah.
residential, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I'm in agreement with the 3+1 requests.
Me too.
And so, would you want to make a motion?
Yep, I move to grant the variances to locate the septic tank below high groundwater, to reduce the separation to groundwater from 4 feet to 3 feet, for the leach field, the setback to property line to 10 feet, and the setback from the wetland to 72 feet. And these are for 202 Main Street.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Okay, well, thanks for that presentation.
Thank you very much. It's very
Thank
nice
you.
meeting you.
Nice to meet you.
Good to meet you. When are you thinking of starting this job?
They want to start as soon as possible. We still need to go through conservation. They don't meet until the first week in May. I don't see any issues with Concom. Obviously, the septic's going to be a lot better than what's out there right now. But after they close the public hearing, legally they have 21 days to issue a permit. There's a 10-day appeal period on top of that, so you're still looking at a month.
Yeah, middle of June.
Right. I mean, they want to get it done. To tell you the truth, I think they're better off in the middle of June. There is a high water table out there, so
It'll be drier.
yes.
Yeah.
But
we'll
they want to
be
get it done
looking
as
for it.
soon as they can.
Well, thank you.
Great. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, next up is, you know, Frank, these pens that you've supplied us today are
Our substandard.
We'll get some better ones.
you should give the chairman a better
Yeah,
pen.
we should.
I mean, he can have an inferior pen.
Hey, would be fine.
I'm only
with
kidding.
it.
I'm only kidding. Okay, next up is the 681 Haverhill Street permit extension request.
Yes, as you remember, at the last meeting, Mr. Chairman, the board had talked about, even with the Permanent Extension Acts, if you still wanted to entertain one-year extensions for approvals, and the board voted yes, they would. It was our first one. Pretty straightforward. There's a letter in there in your packet from the resident just asking for that one-year extension at 681 Haverhill Street.
Seems reasonable.
Yep, I think that's consistent with why we even thought about doing this. Do you want to give a motion to?
Yeah, I move to grant a one-year extension to the plan for City of Haverhill Street.
I second that.
Aye.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay.
Okay. Let's see here. Next up
Okay, next we have
is, let's see, quarterly report, septic loan.
Yep, should be in your packet, a copy of the report. Basically, this was for January 1st through March 31st of this year. We actually had no activity this quarter, which is not surprising in the middle of winter. It's usually pretty quiet unless there's a real emergency. As you can see, our starting amount from the last report was $519,260.
So that's the balance in our account.
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah, that's our starting, where we left off December 31st.
Mm-hmm.
There were no drawdowns, no additional money to draw down, actually. The $1,250,000 that we borrowed in two different borrowings has all been drawn down and is all in town now. So again, no drawdowns this past quarter. There were also no disbursements this past quarter, no loans. And also there were no administration costs this quarter as well, so which goes right back to our starting balance for the ending balance of the $519,260.67. And then you can see we have a plan for disbursements for next quarter. We have one loan. We actually already processed one this quarter already, and we have 2 other applications that are out just waiting to be returned. So
Good.
we'll definitely have some activity this quarter. We're going to forward this to the treasurer and the accountant, which, you know, because of the no activity, really not much to interpret, but forward it to them for signatures to send off to the state.
Great.
Sounds good.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. And we're going to look at our town meeting
Yeah,
articles coming up. When is town meeting?
town meeting is on Monday, May 5th. We have our 2 standard articles that we have every year. The first one is to pay the Massachusetts Water Pollution Abatement Trust back for the money we borrowed for the septic loan program. The amount of $53,439 is the same as last year. We did draw down that last $200,000 from the second borrowing, which completed the $1,250,000. We have not received the paperwork yet to pay that back yet. If that does change from now until town meeting, our treasurer is telling us we could always make a motion on the floor if we wanted to incorporate that, but that's probably not going to happen. But it'll most likely be on next year, which will raise an additional $10,000, so it'll be around $63,000 next year. But anyway, it's $53,439, and then our standard revolving fund that we have every year as well.
Okay.
Any questions?
Nope.
Okay.
So then our proposed budget.
Yep, in your packet you'll see our proposed budget for next year, FY15. Not really too much here. Our expenses are level funded, and you can see a breakdown in your packet. The only real change is the stipend for our public health nurse. The Board of Selectmen and the Finance Committee both did support this increase. As you know, we used to have the VNA do our nursing for us back in 2003, and at that time we had sent them a letter. This was Partners Home Care saying, we're going to get a nurse now, and we went that route. So the stipend amount has been the same for over 10 years now. Now even 10 years ago, back then, from the records I could find, we were averaging about $1,800, $1,900 a year paying the VNA to do this work. And since then, the amount of work has greatly increased due to emergency planning, as you heard at your last meeting, about all this planning for the emergency dispensing sites and so forth. So, which is why we're looking for the increase.
Also, I do see a significant increase in your salary between 13. I know you were trying to just cover that. No, I'm only kidding. So, and that's caused from the review that was done?
Yes.
But just clarify that for us and the viewers here.
Yeah, that was last year, but yeah, they looked at the personnel plans and did a study, and basically every department was adjusted.
Yeah,
accordingly.
and brought into the norms for.
Yeah, it's still at the lower end, but it's more in range where it should be.
Yep, we're certainly in agreement. And our office expenses have pretty much stayed the same.
Yep, those are level funded. No real changes there.
All right, and this is just a breakdown of our.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. All right, well, this is fine.
Okay.
This has gone to be in the town report.
Yes.
Have you met before the finance committee for their
They did,
blessing?
yeah, they did review it and did approve it, as well
Okay.
as the selectmen as well. So,
Good.
yeah,
We're all set.
All set, yeah.
Okay, so we've got the flu vaccine usage report.
Yeah, in your packet, you'll see, this is the report we sent to the state at the end of the year, after flu season is finished. As you can see, last year we received 200 doses of the 0.5 milliliter doses. We've got 3 different lots this year, and you can see the breakdown of each lot, where they went, the age brackets and so forth. We did use all the vaccine. There was no doses lost, which is again another credit to our being careful, no expiration, no temperature control issues. Yeah, pretty much straightforward. It's just a breakdown there and
Mhm.
where they all went.
Great.
Mhm.
And then this one, this was sent to the
Tight
state.
system.
Yeah. Any questions on that?
Nope,
Nope.
we're all
Okay.
set. Next thing is the mosquito spraying property exclusions.
Yeah. As you know, you can exclude your property from pesticide spraying during mosquito season if you choose. As you remember, we talked about this and had advertised if you did
Yeah.
want to do that, you need to send a certified letter to the town clerk before March 1st of each year. And that was done, and our town clerk did give us a letter, it should be in your packet there. You can see there were 9 residents that responded, and you can see the names and addresses that are there.
So this is from street spraying,
Yes, when we do our targeted
Yep.
spraying, what'll happen.
if we do it.
If we do, yes. Mosquito control will put these addresses in their GPS, and when they come around, they shut the equipment off when they are near those addresses.
Yep.
And then they turn them back on. So these were all verified by the town clerk and by mosquito control, so those were the ones
Okay,
that
that's all set.
came up this year.
Good. Okay, we've got some tobacco compliance check
Yes.
info.
Yeah. There were 2 compliance checks. We'll start with the local ones that were done. As you know, Ron Burgard, he works with the Healthy Communities Tobacco Control Program. He
A state program.
Yes,
right?
exactly. He does the compliance checks for us every year and works with the retailers on signs and postings and any changes in the law that may occur. He works very closely with them. We have 8 establishments in town. The last compliance checks were done on February 26th of this year. Unfortunately, 1 establishment did not pass. You can see Ron gives you a little letter there explaining what
Mhm.
happened. We did send a letter to the establishment, and also when these compliance checks are done, Ron will go in right after the violation and talk to the person selling the product, which he did. He notified us right away, as he always does, and we had a meeting, myself, Ron, and the owner, and talked about, what happened. It was an employee, it was not the owner or manager. It was a mistake made. We talked to her about, she actually had told us some other changes she made, hopefully, to prevent this from happening again.
And you've spoken with the manager of the store?
Yes,
Yeah.
myself and Ron, we both went in to have a meeting with her and
Mhm.
talk about what happened. Basically now it's up to the board if they want to do more with this, or if you're satisfied with what we have done. If you want to have them in, it's up to
When
you.
will they be checked again?
We do it every year, so it'll probably be another year from now.
Can we move it up to?
We can certainly talk about that, yeah, if you like, yeah.
Yeah, I think it would be good to see if, and Ron does the inspections, he's our,
Yeah, he does 2 things. He does go around to just look at signs, make sure everything's posted properly, talk to the retailers, he'll do price checks. Matter of fact, when he was in town, we were talking to the owner of one of the establishments, he actually was doing a price check. He compares pricing and things. So he'll, like I said, look at signs, make sure everything's posted properly, and he'll also do the compliance checks. So, again, it's up to the board if they want to do any more with this in mind.
What do you think?
I don't think a letter. Do you think a letter is needed?
Well, we did send a
Oh, you
letter.
did
We
send a letter. Oh,
yes.
all right.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
It's now more if
Right.
you want to bring the
Oh,
parties in
oh,
to
all right.
discuss what happened or
Oh,
potential
all right, I'm
fines
sorry,
or-
I missed that.
Yeah, no, we
No,
just-
I think if you could arrange for something to happen, you know, in 3 to 6 months.
Yeah. It depends on the funding. I'll have to talk to Ron. He gets, so much money a year to do these compliance checks, not just here, but in the surrounding towns.
Right,
And if there's a possibility that we can,
yeah, I
Yeah.
think a little more frequent than a year.
Yeah.
okay, yeah,
That
we
sounds
can do
good.
that.
And maybe to also have you have a physical presence in these 2 establishments
Yeah.
as a reminder.
Every year we do go in the office, with outside of Ron
Yeah.
to go in. We do the same thing. We have a checklist of all the signs, we make sure they're all posted. We talk to them,
Yeah.
any issues.
Okay.
So-
All right. Because this is serious,
Right,
and we just want to nip it in the bud.
right, exactly.
Okay, so let's see. So I guess we did both F and G in the same.
Well, actually,
Oh, there's another one?
there is, yeah. This is a separate issue.
All right.
The next one was the FDA compliance checks.
Oh, okay.
This is a little more, well, I'll explain. Every year, the FDA also comes out to the towns to do compliance checks as well. Again, it's done annually. The FDA does contract with the Massachusetts Tobacco Control Program, and this is the letter that you received addressed to the Board of Health
Mm-hmm.
from them, again, who contracts with the FDA to explaining what happened. Unfortunately, on this compliance check, which again had nothing to do with the local one, this is completely different. We don't know that they're coming, they just show up.
Right.
Unfortunately, on this one, there were 2 establishments that had a problem.
And it's a similar scenario that
Yes.
they have a subject who goes in
Exactly.
underage, and
Mhm.
then they get the evidence.
Right.
Okay.
Yep. I didn't give you a copy, but the violation letter that they sent to the establishment details exactly what had happened.
Mhm.
I can get you a copy. So yes, they did receive these warning letters. Now, the establishment has 15 days to respond to this violation letter, and they have to present to the FDA what actions they've taken to assure that this doesn't happen again, which they both did. There's really no action needed on your part unless you
Mhm.
wanted to, again, bring them in to talk to them, but we did not issue any letter, but the letter came from the FDA.
Yep.
Okay.
I think
That's
this,
fine.
as long as you keep up, dropping in more
Yeah.
frequently than
Yeah.
once or twice a year, just kind of remind them that we're
Yeah.
doing this.
And
Because
also-
both of these establishments are reputable,
Mhm.
hardworking businesses in town,
Right,
and they just have to appreciate that their employees are gonna have to cooperate with the regulations.
right. And as an added note, myself and Ron also went to speak to these 2 establishments as well. We actually went on the same day. And explained the seriousness of this. Explain to them, once you're on their radar, they will be back, and they will target these establishments. And we don't really have any control as far as if they want to find them. We
Right.
really can't.
Right.
They're going to do what they want to
That's
do.
okay.
So, again, we explained the seriousness of it, and again, they do have to send a letter to them explaining the changes they made. So again, unless the board wants to do anything further.
No, I think
with
this is a fine course of action.
Yep.
Do you agree?
I'm very good.
The last time, again, they do these compliance checks every year, but the last time we had a problem was in 2011. There were also 2 establishments. One of them's
Okay.
no longer there, but anyway.
Okay.
So that's
I guess next is
that.
review request for percolation testing at a commercial property.
Yep. The office received an application for new construction perk testing at the Market Basket Plaza. This was for a proposed commercial retail facility in the front portion of the of the lot. And I believe on the back of one of your pages, you'll see the proposal there. What I did is I had sent a memo to these groups, the Board of Selectmen, the Planning Board, the Building Inspector, and the Conservation Commission, just to get any feedback if there are any issues with this perk testing being done for this project. The Conservation did submit some feedback, but it's really more once the project gets started. We were really looking more for just the perk testing at this point. The Planning Board did put it on their agenda at their last meeting to discuss if they had any issues with this work being done in this area, and there's a memo in your packet also from the town planner saying that it is acceptable for them to conduct the perk testing to determine if the parcel can be developed. But the board also found that a formal site, a special permit and site plan review would be needed for this project.
All right.
But again, this is a large project, and we just wanted to let the board know about it, and also if there are any issues with even doing the perk testing in this area, we would need to address that, but it seems...
Well, you're going to you're going to guide them into being directed to places that are reasonable and acceptable to regulations.
Right. It was more to see if disturbance in this area, if before we allow disturbance to happen in this area, if there were any issues that needed to be addressed first. And, you know, again, in the memo from the planning board, from the town planner, the planning board did say they can go ahead and do that, but again, they'll have to go back to them to review the site plan review.
It seems like a small site for such a big store. We'll see what they want to do.
Mhm.
Okay, next is our light metal collection day.
Yeah, a little late getting underway this year. We had some things to work out, but actually just today we ironed out some of the details. But we're looking at May 17th to have our annual white goods light metal household recycling day.
Yeah.
This is where we take, you know, the white goods, really looking for products that have Freon on them. You know, basically this, at the same location, the highway department, same times as we usually do Saturday mornings. We will take electronics as well. But basically it'll be the same as other years.
Mm-hmm. Good.
Good. Unless you had any concerns or...
Nope.
Okay.
All right, so next we're into...
Just one more thing, I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman. I just want to let you know, speaking of collection events, the police department and the Drug Enforcement Administration is sponsoring their annual drug take-back day on Saturday, April 26th. This is where you can turn in your unused or expired medication rather than throwing it in the trash or down the drain. This gives a safe method to get rid of it. We do this in the spring and the fall. Well,
Yeah.
the police department, I should say, along with the Council on Aging.
It's going to be advertised.
It is, yes. It's already.
You got this
advertised.
poster up?
It is, yeah.
Okay.
It's on the website and also cable. So anyway, just information.
Okay.
There.
Good. All right.
Okay.
Review of bills.
There's no amount of...
Yeah, that's our light bill for the animal freezer. Most likely coming tomorrow. If you want to
It's
hold off.
usually $10.
It is, it's $10, exactly. If you want to hold off, you can.
No, sure.
Yeah, I usually put it in. That's a recording fee for one of our loans, the registry. Thank you.
Who actually does the recording?
I do. We record it when the lien is placed on the property, and when, if they do sell the house or pay off the loan, I also remove it from there as well. And that's a revolving fund, so we put the $75 in, and then we pay the bill, so it's a continuous, usually zero balance in that account.
Yep.
This is for the loan that we just processed last week, that I was telling you about earlier.
Boy, spent a lot of money today.
Boy,
Actually, they're small bills, but a lot of them.
All right.
Thank you.
Next up is
looks like
approval of the minutes
in January.
from our last meeting in January. We did, there was item 6 from our January meeting that a member of this board asked about the Central Street house that burned. And it really is dragging on a long time. What's the problem?
From what I understand, the Board of Selectmen did review if they wanted to pursue having the town pay for the removal of the house.
I understand the property was sold.
Well, it's in limbo right now. It was.
Who's trying to buy it?
I don't know.
It says under agreement on
Under
the
agreement,
side.
Yeah. There was some issue with the deed, from what I understand, and they're trying to resolve those issues, and this was referred to town council, from what I've heard. And she had suggested, I believe, that hopefully it'll be resolved soon, and that I believe she suggested to hold off on the town and to.
But it's certainly an eyesore and a nuisance, and it could be a health hazard, because it's totally unsecured.
Exactly.
I can ask for an update if you want.
Yeah,
Yeah, please.
yeah, I mean, it's not invisible to me to drive by it and feel like it's not being conducted correctly.
Yeah.
How many months has it been? October?
I think it was in July,
Oh.
actually. It was over the summer.
Yeah, so I mean, we're approaching a year
Last year,
with a totally destroyed building next to living dwellings. There ought to be a system.
Yeah.
There ought to be a better system than this. I mean, what do you say to those neighbors? I wouldn't be a happy neighbor. I'll sign these. Sign these.
Okay.
So you check that out?
I will, yeah, I will give you some feedback on that.
So our next meeting date, let's see, so today is the middle of April. Oh, look at this.
My goodness.
Yeah, but I don't like the
Oh, right,
sponsor
right, yeah,
of the
we can-
calendar.
We can take that out.
Let's see here. May. You going on any holidays?
Be away the weekend of the 10th, so I'll probably leave like the 9th and come back.
Okay.
I'll probably be
Yeah.
gone here.
And town meeting is the 5th, you said?
Yeah,
So we don't really need to meet before town meeting, do we?
I don't believe so, no.
So why don't we schedule our next meeting the 19th
Okay.
of May? Which would be right after the,
right.
yeah, our collection day.
Right.
Collection day.
Okay,
And we don't need a meeting because we've done that so many times.
right,
You've got that all down.
yeah.
Okay, that sounds good. And then wrapping it up. Concerns of the board. Have been any complaints about Frank? Have you heard anything in the golf course or anything?
I haven't heard anything on the golf course, although they have new management out
They
there.
do.
Oh,
So,
Yes,
so
it
keep
is.
your ears.
so with I don't know what they're gonna make arrangements for food, but you need
Yeah,
to
we've
address that.
actually already started talking about that, yep, we're looking at a few different options, whether to just purchase sandwiches from a distributor to sell, or if they wanna make their own there. They've been throwing around the idea of grills, but, you know, again, they have some planning to do, so.
Oh,
We looked at some different options, talked to the owners, and they're gonna let us know what they think. I think they're gonna see how this year goes, because they're just starting out, you know,
Sure.
under new management and new course and new development and everything, so. We'll see how it progresses, and, but conversation's already started, so.
excellent.
And the VFW's handling stuff correctly?
Yes, yep, they're trying to revitalize their kitchen. Of course, it comes down to money as usual, but they're, again, trying to bring some life back in there as well, and talk to the manager there as well, and has some ideas, and we're trying to figure out
Good.
things with the fire department as well.
It's good you're working with them.
Yep, no, we talked several times, been down there several times already, and haven't heard much recently, but I'll follow up with them to see if they've made any decisions or which way they were thinking of going.
All right.
They did have a kitchen there a while ago, but it was no longer in use, so but there's some fire code issues that they have to address with the kitchen, but we'll keep working with them.
Well, can we have a motion to end this meeting?
I move, John Melcher, it's 8:02, I move to adjourn the meeting.
I second it. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you, Frank.
Yeah, thank you.